Ottawa and Canada in general, we're here to talk about right before, in front of rather, Gar Party's book, The Scary World of Nuclear Weapons Agenda for Elimination is an amazing book. You got to check it out. It's a very prophetic book. It was written a few years ago, but now the time is to talk about this because of Trump's continuing his obsession about Greenland, and a lot of people know about the recent images, relatively recent, published in Newsweek, showing an AI image of Trump controlling Canada and Greenland in front of and talking in front of European leaders in the Oval Office. Now, that pretty much presents why Trump wants Greenland. Trump is not scared of China and Russia. In fact, Greenland would be more than willing to provide, present and offer any opportunity of United States having expanded military operations in Greenland. You know, the Danish have been very friendly to United States over the years, so this is not about that. Um, what Trump wants is a free hand to completely control the whole of the island, not only for its military resources as far as its transactional policy, but he wants to unfettered, to be able to move up military ships and military infrastructure so that he can take over Canada's north and take over Canada. So, in response, Carney, our prime minister, has, made various moves that seem to be intellectually wise, but we need much more than that. We need much more than rhetoric. The Europeans have set up, presented a very token force of, sounds like less than 20 soldiers. That's not going to do it. What we need, and based upon my international relations background, I'm going to tell you my views of what needs to be done in order to stop this ridiculousness, sociopathic nonsense that could very well lead to World War III, in my view. And people might say, "Oh, how could Greenland taking over World War III? How could that lead to World War III?" That would likely lead to World War III because Trump would take over Greenland. He's seeking to take over Iceland, expand into, take over the whole of the Western Hemisphere, and it's his so-called Donroe Doctrine. And then he's not going to stop there. He's going to try to take over Europe, and and probably try to go to Putin and say, well, Putin, you take over back your Eastern Bloc countries, and we'll take over, um, United Kingdom and and control Western Europe. I mean, people think, oh, that's crazy. No, no, that's what the plot is here. That's what the plot is. So this is an existential threat to both Canada, Europe, and the whole world. He wants to completely destroy so-called liberal democracy, democratic rights, and install his authoritarian fascist command structure that would be controlled by China, Russia, and himself. So how are we going to stop this? Well, more than rhetoric, it needs to start from Canada. It needs to start from Canadian leadership because the Europeans have provided the leadership which is necessary. And this just setting up 12, I don't know, about 12 soldiers to Greenland and with a whole bunch of rhetoric and hot air. I mean, that is outrageous. We have the outrageous response of, no, the outrageous, rather response, but outrageous threats of Trump to take over Greenland and an outrageous response equally by the Europeans. Just a bunch of rhetoric, hot air. Oh, let's send you the 12 soldiers. So we as Canadians need to be the grown-ups in here. We need to, put, in my view, 10,000 soldiers stationed in Canada's north. That's what we need to do. We need 10,000 soldiers stationed in Canada North immediately to countervail the threatened operations of 1,500 elite Arctic stormtroopers in Alaska, raining down in Greenland and swooping and taking over Canada in one full swoop from the north. So we need 10,000 soldiers in Greenland. Carney needs to, go on national television, ask for 10,000 reservists, 10,000 volunteers, and simply say, who wants to defend Canada's north? Who wants to help defend Greenland? I'm pretty sure that he would have no problems in mobilizing this within days and getting the volunteers necessary to, to be put on Ellesmere Island, Victoria Island, Baffin Island, as well as the Greenland Canada border. And if the Greenland was wise, along with Denmark, it would try to invite some of these branded Canadian NATO reservists and have some of their people on Greenland to defend Greenland and all its airspace and its air, including its airports, from the threatened U.S. invasion. So that's what is needed. What is needed is Canada to get into the same mode it was in World War II and start to take action. And I have no doubt that Canadians who had enough of this 51st state nonsense, had enough of threats of Greenland, had enough of Trump threatening instability. What is needed here is starting to speak from a standpoint of power, not just simply planning for potentially for Saab Gripens down the road in 3 years, not simply talking about, oh, let's go to 300,000 citizen soldiers sometime in the future. We need to start mobilizing now, because if Greenland falls, Canada's going to fall like a domino. We can't, I don't think there's too many Canadians who want this. And if we're going to prevent a blitzkrieg, and style, which is blitzkrieg, if you know about World War II, is a lightning military takeovers that Hitler initiated by countries like us, like the Europeans now, that simply didn't take Hitler serious. We need to start taking Trump seriously. We need to start mobilizing troops. 10,000 troops, in my view, would be the type of capacity, the capability that we need in order to mount and stop this rhetoric of taking over Canada, taking over Greenland. Greenland and Canada need to work together, start a military compact, bring up the Canadian soldiers. The Danes aren't doing the job. We can do the job if Carney starts to provide the leadership beyond the intellectual rhetoric, beyond simply going to Davos and saying good, interesting words. I'm sure he understands the problem. He understands the threat. That's why he's undertaking bilateral negotiations on trade. What is needed is a Canadian military response. We need to stop thinking ourselves as weak, Canadians are becoming more concerned about invasion. By the United States, there's been published scenarios that the Canadian military is thinking about this. That's what we need. We need the mobilization of 10,000 Canadians in Canada's north. I have no doubt that in our population of 40 million and among the reservists, we're going to have no problem getting 10,000 soldiers up in Canada's north who would be quite willing and interested in helping to defend Greenland. We need the will, we need the way, we need initiative. All we need is Carney going up, national television, CBC, CTV, whatever, and saying that, are there 10,000 of us Canadians who are ready to defend the homeland? 10,000 Canadians who are ready to defend our north, ready to help defend Greenland as part of NATO. Are there? Call this number, or go to this, military base, report here, and send up planes up there, and the Canadians will be ready as we were in World War II. This is the kind of leadership that we need.